everybody's the host when you are going to talk about philosophy. I'm from Venezuela, and my idea of Bitcoin being related to philosophy somehow is directly linked to the necessity that I have to use this technology. So often I tend to say that Bitcoin is a good way to talk about freedom in that regard. So maybe we can start like in that way. What are your idea of Bitcoin being somehow or in some way related to philosophy, or if it is not at all, like it's just software?
So I guess to start, my name is Erik, Cason, and I actually wrote a book on Bitcoin philosophy called Crypto Sovereignty. And to me,
Yes.
thank you, Izzy. And the subjects that I have for that, it's called the hidden crypto sovereignty, the encrypted philosophy of Bitcoin. Because I think when we first come into Bitcoin, it just seems like number goes up. We all come in for the economic value. But what happens is as you start to explore Bitcoin more and more, you realize it's having you ask these very profound questions about life, such as, what is money? And when we start to relate to the question of what is money, that actually has us ask, how are we going to use our time and our value in our lifetime in order to be able to try to change the world? And I think that Bitcoin actually unveils, through us exploring this topic of philosophy, a very, very deep root of what does it mean to be human, and how are we going to interact with each other and exchange with each other. And as someone who comes from Venezuela, you have very directly seen the very real suffering of what happens when money is broken. And it breaks everything in society, and it becomes an extremely nihilistic world where there doesn't seem to be any point except for trying to protect yourself individually. And you don't even have the opportunity to be able to ask larger questions like, how can we actually meaningfully change the world when we can't even find food or water or medicine or anything else, despite the fact that we are this globalized world that is supposed to be advanced and at peace. So,
Please, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Angelo Morgan Summers. I have a fetish for freedom. When I was 12, I left school because it was not a very freedom-enhancing situation to be in. Long story, but since that point, I've been brushing up against the hard edges of reality for the subsequent years, and I think it's a direct result of having to encounter those problems earlier on, such as, when most people leave university, they get thrust into the world and they go, oh shit, I need to make money, I need to support myself. And that realization is a violent one, but it gives way to a whole plethora of personal growth and self-actualization. And I think Bitcoin, as a form of money that is true to the fundamental fact that or fundamental acknowledgement that you can't take a 30 centimeter ruler and draw more lines and by fiat, by decree, say that those are now new centimeters, therefore you have increased the distance that the actual measurement stick measures by increasing the units by which they're measuring them. When you refuse to sort of buy into that sugar-coated and convenient truth that is placed forwards by central banking and the printing of new money, which is just the measurement of value, you have to brush up against the hard edges of reality in the same way. And, nobody feels more free than when they're doing the most dangerous shit. We went paragliding the other day here, and it's when you're doing that stuff, when it's real and there's actual danger, that the most freedom is found. And I think there's a close tie between like the majority of the design choices in Bitcoin and personal freedom. And whether or not most people that end up getting Bitcoin will see that, I don't know. But for us, people at this conference, we clearly do, and it's having a big effect on all of us. So, I think Bitcoin is freedom money for many reasons.
Thanks, Javier. How many of you, I'm Izzy, I'm CEO of Amber App and love these guys. I've done a few panels with Erik talking about this before. How many of you have been changed by Bitcoin? Why? Why is that? Have you ever really thought about why and how Bitcoin changes you? Like, how is that? Like, so the incentives change you, right? I think Bitcoin is a mirror. My first presentation ever was Bitcoin is a mirror. What to tie this into philosophy, right? So etched in the temple of Delphi above one of the doorways was "Nose te ipsum," know thyself, right? Why would the ancients tell us to know thyself? Why is that so important? And what better way to know ourselves than to have something reflect our transactional lives back to us? You know what I mean? Everything that we do in this world now is transactional. In all those sectors of society that you're talking about, we have transaction with it. And Bitcoin asks you, what is the value of that transaction? And ultimately asks you, what is the value of you in that transaction? And when you lead a life in this bullshit money that is fiat money, where your value is stolen and you're raped of your own dignity, you can't find that value. But when you have something that's a hard money, you see the value, you feel the value, and it changes your perception of what this is, and more importantly, what you are as a person.
And I would even push back that when you're using fiat money or slave credits, I like to call them, you're implicitly acknowledging that you do have a servant and slave relationship to fiat money.
Absolutely.
You're saying, I am allowing for somebody else to steal a portion of my value, and I am devaluing myself so that I can give a portion of my value to the system that seeks to enslave other people, to be part of a system of global perpetual war, and the ability for the political parasite class to steal a portion of that wealth to enrich themselves for their own selfish cause. And one of the reasons that Bitcoin connects to philosophy to me is that this is the most important quintessential question that all of us as humans have to ask is, are we truly actually self-sovereign human beings that have agency and the ability to choose for ourselves a new form of freedom in life together that we share? Or we will continue to allow for the exploitation that, as Javier has witnessed very directly, the absolute barbarism that it reduces people to when you say that your value is less than that of the state is allowed to steal as much as they want from you and exploit you and use that for whatever cause you have, and you must obey that command. And I say, no, we must absolutely refuse that. And that is a philosophical imperative to say, I would rather not. I would prefer not to, and I reject that form of life to open myself up to a new form of life.
And that's something that I that's something that I was trying to ask, because obviously we have these ideas, and Bitcoin has its ethos that we share in some ways, but how we turn this into an action plan, into a more playable thing, because obviously here in the conference and listening to each other's or experience about using Bitcoin to overthrow authoritarianism, we get inspired, but how we can turn that inspiration and use Bitcoin as a tool to change things, because I don't want to be a slave, and I'm trying to get the most freedom that I can, and Bitcoin is a tool that I'm using in that regard. But how we can make it, let's say, a political plan, a political movement, or it is not needed, it's enough to be individuals and be clear by ourselves. How do you think we can build some?
One thing on that, you said then it's, you're talking about freedom, right? And it's a choice. Like, look at what Buckminster Fuller said. Why fight the current system? And with Bitcoin, we have a way of simply opting out, focusing on something that is so much fucking better, and making that choice for freedom. If you think about it, we all of us, because we partake in the protocol, because we're Bitcoiners, we're at the front of the first ever non-violent human revolution. I don't know any other generation that's had that possibility. If you wanted your freedom, you had to fight for it. You had to stand up beside your brothers and sisters and fight. All we have to do now is opt out, create and operate within this better system. So what do? We keep building. We keep building the tools that we need.
And I'd go even further. I have a great essay that was published in Bitcoin Magazine. You can find online. It's called The Political. And to me, what Bitcoin represents the political. And I want to divide this from the idea of politics, and that the political is actually the quintessential essence of what the polis is. And this idea of what forms of life do we actually choose to make together in a society? What is in the broadest swath the idea of how do we come together and form a society together? And through us choosing Bitcoin, we're allocating our power, our value, and our wealth to a totally new system that as we all start forming and choosing to utilize that together, we're actually opening ourselves up to a totally new destiny for human freedom, where the radical decision for individuals to choose to allocate their wealth into this methodology that can't be extracted from them, cannot be inflated away from them, and is globally shared amongst everybody, radically alters the political landscape. Before today, the only option that I had in order to have solidarity with your people who are suffering endemically under the American imperialism that I have an implicit relationship towards that I need to rectify, there wasn't any meaningful way that I could actually do that. But now through me choosing Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin and using it as my vehicle and storage of wealth, I have a very real and direct solidarity with you and your people, along with the Uyghur people in China or other exploited people anywhere around the globe. And this actually transforms itself into the most quintessential political ideal that allows for us to have a global solidarity, that allows for us to fight against the same systems of exploitation that while we're suffering under in America, you've suffered under much more endemically. And to me, that is the most important cause, because for me, Bitcoin is not about furthering the idea of Western imperialism. It's about fundamentally ending it so that the most exploited 6 billion people that belong to the global South finally have the opportunity to determine for themselves what it means to have self-sovereignty and to no longer be exploited by the endemic system of exploitation that Western financial imperialism has implemented.
I don't think the Bitcoin... So yeah, there's the political side, right? It's going to change things politically. But all political revolutions, like you look at Hitler in the 1930s and stuff, it was because there was already a deep-rooted dissatisfaction within the general population that he became the figurehead of and rose to power as a result of. I think the political top-down approach that we see, I mean, it looks like we elect figureheads that implement their own views and their own original ideas back onto society once elected, but I don't think it works like that. I think we elect people that reflect the people themselves and the internal desires of like the general population. And I think what Bitcoin represents is not like some new political system or some new I don't think it is the manifestation of dissatisfaction with any given political system. I think it's a dissatisfaction with the political game in general. And there's something in Bitcoin like this. It's completely voluntary, right? You're opting out of a current version of the system, and it's not because we want to create some new politics thing. Like people say, it's apolitical because it is a bottom-up creation of a new technology that allows us to circumvent the kind of distractions that occur when you have, like, I don't know if you've heard of the panopticon. It's like basically, for anybody in the audience that doesn't know, it's a design for a prison system in which there is one guard for all of the prisoners, and the guard is placed in the center of this cylindrical prison, and the guard can see inside all of the cells at all times, but the people within the cells, the inmates, don't know whether or not they're being watched by the guard. What that does is makes it so that you only need one guard to monitor the entire thing, because if you don't know whether or not you're being watched, you're going to act like you are. And when we know that we are being watched financially, when we are being surveilled financially, our privacy, our right to privacy of transaction is being violated, and the world becomes more public and brand becomes more important for everybody, even just working normal corporate jobs. If they get found out to have something that is not within the accepted realm of public discourse, they could be deeply, deeply financially burdened by those opinions, by those perspectives. And when you have that system, that panopticon-based, like Eye of Sauron, like looking over everything that everybody is doing, and people don't have the privacy to transact, it's like something is happening at the kernel level, like at the root of the tree. There is a poison that is, it's hard to tell exactly, like, and point out this bad thing has happened because of that, and this bad thing has also happened because of that. It's more like in the actual, in like the essence of how society develops. And they say like money is the fabric of human cooperation, right? And so if you tarnish that, you tarnish human cooperation. And everything that we have built, this stadium itself is the product of human cooperation. And the free market is the biggest distributed cognition mechanism that has ever existed, is the faith in the ability of large groups of people to prioritize and map the territory accordingly so that we can know how best to move forwards. And when you distract people by surveilling them and you place these pressures, you start to harness that faith, not just in the politics and the political figureheads, but in the people themselves. And, you know, there's, in all times of human history where there's been the most tension, groups of the people have been at each other's throats. You know, I'll use Nazi Germany again, people were dobbing in their neighbors. People found out that their like cousins, their like brother-in-law had reported them to the SS because like the pressure of being found out to have known that your brother-in-law is a Jew and not to have reported it to the SS was enough to make people willingly submit a form to an organization that they knew would lead to the death of a loved one. Like the pressure that you can put on people is substantial. And when you do that at a global scale, with, you know, the centralizing powers of technology, it's impossible to tell the second, third, and fourth order effects that has on not just the politics, but the individuals themselves.
Yes. But at the same time, being an open network, and we are individuals, and we are I think that our ideas and how we all understand this is like giving us the opportunity to overthrow the system that is already running. But as an open system, as an open technology, the state can overtake advantage of it as we can. So more surveillance, KYC through, they are trying to control and censor what we can mine. They are starting to push new incentive that may turn the same system that we have being describing as a freedom tool or as a freedom technology or a way to conquer more freedoms could become a new panopticon, the new Leviathan, but in steroids, because the same powerful tool that we've been describing and the ideas that it have been built on, it could be used for the guys that we are trying to overthrow. So what are your thoughts about this? Is this a possibility? It's a dangerous zone that we are heading to?
Absolutely. And I want to be very clear that KYC Bitcoin, custodial Bitcoin, ETF Bitcoin, like this is the attack on Bitcoin, and this is how you link and make Bitcoin itself into a panoptic tool. And that's why it is so important to understand the power of cryptography, what it means to actually self-custody your own Bitcoin, to understand what coin joining offers, because there is a very real and a very dangerous opportunity for the powers that be to seize Bitcoin and to make it into another asset that they control in a very powerful way that ensures that they can actually break the very real dignity that Bitcoin offers to us. And that's the self-sovereignty and the independence to have both true freedom, privacy, and the ability to transact with whomever we may please. And I think it's very important to understand we did not consent to a system of KYC. They forced that upon us. We did not consent to a system of self-custody. People lack the education to hold their own Bitcoin. We did not consent to a system of surveillance. They build that with things like blockchain surveillance technology. And it is only through the concerted efforts of each and every one of us to understand Bitcoin as a form of knowledge, as a kind of philosophical approach to how we can use the internet, cryptography, and this very real new and powerful tool that we call Bitcoin to create self-empowerment. Because if we don't have the self-sovereignty and the tools of empowerment here, we may as well just use any other shitcoin that there is, and it will have the very real and same dangers. So To me, this is why the understanding the philosophical underpinnings of the importance of Bitcoin are so key. And furthermore, I'd say that this new voluntary opt-in system, that is the most political thing because of its apolitical nature. Right now, we're all forced to be part of our nation-state systems that none of us actually consented to in any meaningful way. Whereas every person that chooses to use Bitcoin is implicitly consenting to a new system, and that is the most political thing that is occurring in the world today.
You know, Erik, I see it. The word choice has come up so much here. We're talking about choice. We're talking about freedom, right? The interesting thing is, as individuals, we never had the opportunity to overtake a system. You had to band with some of your brothers and sisters and fight a system to overtake that, right? But now we're at such a point in the human endeavor, the mammoth dystopia that's coming down on all of us, no matter where you live on the world, is so huge that you can't even overtake it as a nation state. So how do you defeat that? How do you defeat something that has the money, has the military? Have you ever thought of that? How do you actually, like if you look at it and you're coming to a why, you can go to freedom or you can go to dystopia. The world is going to a dystopian future. And there's only one way that I've seen to be able to alter that path, and it's through decentralization. I think Satoshi understood his intent is somehow imbued into the code that we become bioelectromagnetic nodes. And in that disbursement of choice, we alter dystopia into freedom. You know?
The divinity of man is found in the autonomy of his actions. And when you violate the autonomy of his actions, you violate the man himself. And I think that there's a big, big problem with spine. Like, where's the fucking spine of people these days? Like, it's comfortable to get your stimulus checks. It's comfortable to think they can just print more. It's okay. There is a submission to pleasant realities that are just not based on truth at all. And if you have a map that says there's gold everywhere and there's not gold everywhere, you're still broke. And like, we need to be able to, as a collective people, to grow some fucking like backbones and just be like, right, we're gonna actually tackle problems as they arise. Like, if the economy's in a downturn, it's in a fucking downturn. Let's fix it. Let's not just like print our way out of it, hyper-stimulate the economy and turn the world into some fractal version of like a massive fucking brain where you're just flooding the reward systems with this money that's like analogous to dopamine and making these people go super busy for a while and calling it growth, even though you've built a fucking bunch of roads you didn't need. You've submitted to a bunch of government programs that weren't useful to anybody in any real sense, and you've wasted a bunch of human labor that is very finite. And there's lots of us now, and there's more of us growing. Like, we're a growing population. We need to be able to distribute resources effectively. And when you violate the money, you violate our ability to do that. And you know, you got to ask yourself as well, like, who actually are you, if not like the attention that you place? Who are you if you're not where your attention goes? Like, if you woke up tomorrow and forgot everything about who you are, the idea of the divinity of man is that your attention would fall back into the places that it was originally. And, you know, if you're being pressured to switch your attention to other ways and to avoid acknowledging the hard truths that arise in your life, and you're choosing the safe and easy and pleasant versions of reality that get traded up, I mean, sure, sell your freedom, exchange it for safety, but that's the most dangerous fucking thing you can do.
Yeah. And on that note, I would point out that, like, I don't have the power to defeat the system. I don't have the power to make Bitcoin operate as it's supposed to. I am a single lone individual standing against this monolithic system of exploitation, abuse, and slavery. That as an individual, there is absolutely no hope that I have any ability to stand up against it. But with all of you, and with the entire community that is Bitcoin, and with the vision that we all see, and with the power that cryptography offers us through the power and ability of the internet, for us to act as a trans-global collective that self-supports one another and the individual sovereignty that Bitcoin offers each and every one of us, there is a chance. And it is only a chance because each and every one of us must take the radical responsibility onto ourselves to say, what does it mean if we could actually change this system? What does it mean if we can actually stand up to it in a meaningful way? What does it mean if we can find our spines and stand up together and say, no, I will no longer tolerate your exploitation, your abuse, and your ability to steal from me, and I will choose something else irregardless of how you will meet me. And even if that means I have to flee my country of origin and find a new place to live, even if it means they're going to shut down my bank accounts, even if it means that they are going to label me as an enemy combatant or a terrorist, you cannot have my wealth. I refuse to let you continue to exploit me and my brothers and sisters, and I will choose Bitcoin. We can actually change the future in a meaningful way and reserve that for posterity so that they can actually have the freedom of choice to move away from this system of abuse and dystopia that we've all been forced into.
It's not just it's not just your wealth as well that you're given. Like, sure, you can't take my wealth, right? Inflation sucks. It sucks that your monetary value is going down. But when you work, when you trade your finite, scarce time and energy for something that another man can print, you are acknowledging on some like fundamental material realm, like material level, because the energy that you put into the labor that you do is material. Like, there is a finite amount of it. The time that you spend on your labor is finite. It's the most finite resource you have. And when you're exchanging that for something that to another man is infinite, you are making a metaphysical statement on the actual hierarchy of that. There's one of the most like important parts of the Bible was that, you know, every man is equal, not to bow to another man. When you do that, you're bowing to another man, and you're doing a bit more than that, but I won't get, I'll keep it PG, but you're literally bowing down to another man and saying that, yeah, you have more power over, you're sort of saying that they own you. You may as well grab their point.
You're acquiescing your sovereignty. And what you're talking about, you guys, is, are you willing, to marry what you guys said together, are you willing to sacrifice what you think the world should be for what you know it can be? And live into that. And by doing that, not acquiescing yourself in a transactional world that is out to get you. Yeah?
What do you mean by that? By sacrificing what you...
Well, look at what people think that you should have certain things in society, but the trade-off for that is you live in this inflated society that's fake. So you have to be willing to sacrifice what you think society should give you to create the type of world that you actually want to live in. And Bitcoin gives you that. It gives you the ability to go, yeah, I don't need to have that, because I'm going to focus on this, and I verify this with you and you. And over time, that trumps the fuck out of all that. Like, in terms of what I can have in society. That's what I mean.
We have just 2 minutes, but I want to close asking you, because obviously this is a philosophical perspective of things, and many political movements that are running right now has their own philosophical view on what they are doing to build a more free world, but not necessarily they are seeing that Bitcoin could be a tool as we've seen that it is. So I want to ask you if there's a way to connect these ideas that we all know that many people are upset with the system that is currently running. If there's a way in which we can connect all these, he said, I think that this, like you are deception over the system, and there are many people that are in this same mood. If there's a way to connect these all sentiments, these all ideas, and these conclusions that we know that the system sucks, but we have this tool and we know how powerful it is in a practical way, but many people is not seeing it in that way. So do you think that there is a path in which we can share these ideas beyond Bitcoin? Because as Erik said, the Bitcoin community already knows that there are risks and there are a better future that we can build. But how we can connect with others that are looking into solving the same things that we are trying to solve with Bitcoin?
Javier, I'd like to say something on that. I've thought about this a lot, and the answer may shock you. Help women understand Bitcoin. Women, like, they take care of the circle. They take care of the circle in the family, in the community. And if you look at society, there's not a lot of people that really know what money is. They don't know why their life is broken. But if you help the women understand Bitcoin and what that means for them, they carry children inside of their body. So they're already long-term thinkers. And when you help women understand, not necessarily from an Austrian economics perspective, but from what this means for the future of them, for the future of humanity, I think people follow women.
All right, time's up. So thank you very much, and hope that you enjoyed our crazy conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Albert.